and we'll go from there.
Okay, so my name is George Vamandi. I was born on Long Island in 1988, Mineola, New York, John Winthrop University Medical Center. And I lived on Long Island until I was 13. I was moved down to New Jersey at that age, but the sickness started when I was young because I was fed garbage all my life. It was a lot of processed, just junk foods. I had a lot of ear infections as a young child, so no doubt lots of antibiotics. IBS was the first gastrointestinal type thing I was ever diagnosed with. I was 11 when that. At age 16, I got Epstein-Barr virus, mono, the kissing sickness they call it. Yeah. At 20, I was diagnosed with a schizoaffective disorder, which was really just the consequence of terrible gut health all my life, and it was just getting worse over the years. And then at age 24, temporal lobe epilepsy was the next diagnosis. I had really bad gastroenteritis around that time, like horrible gut distension and terrible gas and diarrhea, very painful. I was having these very sulfuric tasting burps. So then at age 29, I got Lyme disease. I had a deer tick stuck in my back for 20 hours before it was removed. And up until that point, Lyme disease was the most ill I had ever fallen in my life. My physician seems to think there's a connection between Lyme disease and MS, but he's not entirely sure on that one.
When you actually got the Lyme disease, what were your symptoms up to that stage? So how bad was it and were you still eating the junk food and stuff at this stage?
I wasn't eating as terribly. I was still pretty much on a standard American type diet, but I wasn't eating as bad as I used to when I was young.
Sure.
For the first 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, I lost 25 pounds. The bullseye rash, it showed up right here the next day, huge. Like I got bitten on the back, but the rash came up there. Yeah. And it was horrible. The way I actually got, they gave me doxycycline, which is another antibiotic I'm allergic to. I wrote out a list of allergies I've had, but doxycycline was one of the nastiest ones. Yeah. I actually got over the Lyme by eating raw apricot kernels. I had been pretty much bedridden for 3 weeks.
Really?
And I started eating those, and by the next day, I was walking around again.
So how did you find out about that, the raw apricot kernels? Like, did you see it on the internet or?
No, an ex-girlfriend of mine knew a cancer patient that had really good success with those. Like, Jesus. It was some type of terminal stage 4 type cancer, and this woman apparently had great results with these apricot kernels. So I figured I would try it, and they seem to do some good. I mean, they are a cyanogenic glycoside, cyanide-like, so I mean, they're probably not good, and because they're seeds, they weren't good for my gut either, but for the time,
they might not be good long term, but I guess short term, if they helped, fuck it. If it actually helps,
exactly, it seemed to do so. So then after that, I was still crazy. I felt like the schizo thing got worse after the Lyme disease. I was going progressively more and more crazy as I was developing brain lesion, MS. So 2019, 2 years after the Lyme disease and a few months was when the first MS attack happened. And it was the sickest I've ever ever been. What happened was I was getting my teeth fixed because, as if you can imagine, I did hard drugs because of the cytokine storm I was constantly in for most of my life. Like Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride mentions that GAPS patients will usually always end up on hard drugs. They'll self-medicate because gut and psychology syndrome, it works like that.
Yeah,
But
she's amazing, that woman, actually. Like
I
her book Vegetarianism Explained, like I tell all of my people who have tinnitus, like you have to read this book. Like it's unbelievable, like the way it shows how, first of all, it has a kind of going off topic, but the way she shows how all of the what do they call them, like those health pyramids or the health triangles, how it's like bread and stuff all down the
yeah.
bottom, and then it's like the next best, yeah, and then it's like heaps of fruits and all the colors of the rainbow on your plate and stuff. It's all, first of all, it doesn't have all the nutrients and minerals you need, and second of all, it's full of plant toxins, and so it destroys people's guts. Yeah, but yeah, you're the first person who actually told me what she said, how kids who have destroyed guts are more likely to end up on hard drugs. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of those axioms with the vagus nerve in the brain, really.
Yeah.
But so after the Lyme disease, before the MS happened, I was working for a contractor for about a year and a half in crawl spaces and basements and other really moldy atmospheres. We didn't have proper hazmat protection. It was pretty much the COVID masks in the moldiest crawl spaces you could ever
Yeah.
imagine.
Just a joke then. Yeah. Yeah.
Day in, day out.
Yeah.
And so when I stopped doing that job, I was working for a landscaper for a little while. But while I was working for the landscaper, my vision was getting worse and my balance was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think much of it. I just never gave it another thought. But when it all hit me like a ton of bricks, I was getting my teeth fixed, and I got a root canal done. And right after the root canal, like along with the tinnitus resurging, because that was a big one coming back, but I had this pressure in my right ear that it just felt like some terrible blockage that I need drained. And a few months prior, I had a similar symptom, and I did go to an urgent care, and I got them to drain my ear, and all this wax came out. So this time, I go back thinking I had some type of blockage again, and they look in my ears. They didn't see anything, and slowly not slowly. This came on within a few weeks. In 2 weeks, the pressure became so intense that I had lost all feeling and hearing in my right ear. My ears were ringing.
This is how soon after the root canal? Sorry.
A week, 2 weeks, but
Wow.
by the second week after the root canal, I had vertigo that was like drunk spins with the nausea, vomiting, and lack of balance to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I had nystagmus that was so severe that my physician's first impression was that I had a brain tumor. To jump forward a little bit, when I was in the hospital being treated for that first MS attack with 5 days of intravenous steroids, they brought every white coat on the floor into my hospital room to look at my eyes because, it was all the residents in training, and they wanted to show them what nystagmus actually looked like.
God.
And I don't have that anymore, but yeah, my balance was terrible for those 2 months. I first went to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. It took me, I think, 6 or 7 weeks to get into a neurologist and get the MRIs and all of that.
Yeah. What did the ENT say?
He actually was the first one to suggest I go get intravenous steroids.
Right. Okay.
Because it seemed to him that what was going on was way beyond his reach.
Okay.
Like he was intuitive enough at least to notice that.
Yeah.
but there was neuropathy all over, like constant aches, pains, cramps, and spasms. I So yeah, my girlfriend had to drive me to every doctor. She had to fill out every form because I couldn't see anything. She had to walk me into every test, everything, and
Wow, man.
so so
You should be dead.
I should be.
Yeah, you
I
should
should
be
be.
dead.
All things considered, I should absolutely be dead.
Yeah.
Uh, and so when I did finally get the MRI and I saw the imagery, more than half of my brain was covered in white and gray matter. If you saw this, you would have thought it belonged to a corpse or something like that. I mean, it looked.
So what does that mean exactly when your brain has got plenty of white and grey matter? Does it mean it's just dead tissue, or what does it mean specifically?
I never really asked, so I don't really know. I'll ask my MS specialist when I see him again. But
the point is, obviously, it shouldn't be there.
Exactly, and
Gotcha.
I couldn't form sentences. I couldn't hold conversations.
Yeah.
I would forget everything. Like you could have told me something 10 times, and a minute later, I'd have had no idea you told me that.
Yeah.
And the fatigue was absolutely miserable. Like, I don't think I stayed awake for an entire day for a year after that.
Wow.
But so after my admission to the hospital and getting the 5 days of IV steroids, that was when I realized I needed to change my diet. I didn't know anything about light, but I knew that certain foods I would react a certain way to. So I started grasping the whole idea of signal to noise in my experience, and it really gave me some insight. So the first things I cut out were like seed oils, gluten, wheat, refined grains, sugar, pasteurized dairy.
Yeah. So all like the bread and like toast and like jams, or just like jams and that sort of thing, and the bagels, you cut all that sort of stuff out.
Yeah, none of that. I wasn't really eating much bread, but I pretty much just did meat and vegetables for a year.
Yeah, nice.
Because in the MS world, Dr. Terry Walls always talks about eating like 2 big plates of vegetables a day. Okay. So taking that suggestion, I was trying to do that. And I mean, I didn't get worse in that time, but I didn't improve. I had really bad urinary retention problems.
Yep.
I peed the bed more than a few times.
Yeah, that's full on. I remember I was watching your MeatRx interview yesterday and today again, and I remember you said something. It's sad in the moment, but in hindsight, it kind of made me laugh in a way because you're over it now. And you said, like, for a year, my life was think to do something, go into the room, forget it, and then
I saw, I forgot what I was doing. Now I have to pee.
Yeah, that's it. That was funny. Yeah. That was. It's funny now, but yeah, I remember when you said that, I thought it was pretty humorous.
I mean, I kept humor alive as all of this was happening.
Wow.
I don't know if you ever watched South Park, but there was that one episode with the little guy that Cartman ends up getting into a fight with, and he would always...
Yes, and he's like an old man.
Are like bullets, and he would waddle, and because my balance was so bad and I'd be waddling like that, I would say, like, you see, words are like bullets.
Yeah. No, I've been watching literally South Park for the last couple of days with a friend of mine. So yeah, it's hilarious. I watched that like Imagination Land, that 3-episode one. God. Okay, so So can I ask as well, that ENT that put you to go get that steroid drip intravenously, did those steroids help at all or no? Or did they do
Well,
any?
well, he suggested I go do that, but it took me, I think, another 5 or 6 weeks before I actually did it. When the you need to go right to the hospital and get IV steroids.
Wow.
Um,
Oh,
draw doses before my vision, before I could read anything on the walls.
yeah.
Um, because until then, my eyesight was 60% out in both eyes. And my hearing started coming back in my right ear. It wasn't full, and my ears were still ringing all the time. But that was before I went down the blue light rabbit hole and
Hmm.
started avoiding that like the plague it is. But
Yeah, we should. Obviously, we'll finish your story now, but yeah, I definitely want to get back to the whole blue light thing because it's very underestimated.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So I was on 5 days of IV steroids. I got out of the hospital. I started having really severe. 24 hours after the final dose, I went into the most intense withdrawals I've ever experienced from the steroids.
Hmm.
So I got an oral round from my doctor.
Hmm.
It was supposed to be a taper, but because I was in such bad shape, I needed them just to not pee myself and to be able to kind of walk around and, you know,
Wow. Yeah.
be
Just
able
fun. Yeah, yeah.
to up and make food for myself. Um, as so after that, I had to go back a couple months later for another course of IV steroids, 3 days this time, for the lesions on my spine because they did a spine MRI and it revealed 3 lesions on the cervical spine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, I got put on Ocrevus when I finally did get off the steroids. And when you're on steroids for any extended period of time, I was for 5 months. I was choking on fluids like 10 times a day and my own saliva about another 10 times a day. My epiglottis was not working at all.
Is that's only in extreme cases that they'll let you take that amount of steroids over that amount of time, right? Like the fact that they gave you prescription level, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was. I was on 40 milligrams of prednisone a day for like 5 months, but
Yeah.
each time you go to the hospital to be treated with an IV, it's 1,000 milligrams of methylprednisone at a time for
Did you
3
ever did you
days.
ever take any sorry, did you ever take any steroids when you were like prednisolone when you were younger for your IBS? Like did they try and give you that for that?
No, they just gave me fiber supplements.
Fucking hell.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's ridiculous. People normally get something like Salifolk or prednisone or prednisolone or something like that. But yeah, I'm guessing the fiber supplements did they help or no?
I don't remember. I mean, it's a long time ago. I remember always having a messed up gut all my life. I always had gas. I always had some type of bowel problems
Okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'll stop interrupting. Yeah, go on with
to
the yeah.
varying degrees, but all right. So, and then I mean, I've had a lot of allergies. Oh, well, when I first got into the MS thing, well, not into it, but I was supplementing a lot because the MS space is supplement crazy because none of them eat a proper diet.
Gotcha.
I was taking lion's mane. I was taking CoQ10,
Mm-hmm.
vitamin D, cholecalciferol, a rodenticide, calcium, magnesium, zinc, a B complex, B12, alpha lipoic acid. I mean, none of them did anything. It was
Yeah, that was my next question. Did any of them do anything at
no,
all? No, nothing. Yeah.
no, like nothing helped me until I decided, like, all right, I'm just gonna. This is my last Hail Mary. The all grass-fed, grass-finished red meat, organs, bone marrow, that whole thing. I did that as an absolute last Hail Mary, and
What did you, because I remember you said you saw Paul Saladino talking about it, but yeah, what did you think? Did you think when you were going to do it that, like, this is going to either work or it's going to kill me? Or, like, did you have anything running through your mind as you sort of did it? Or?
yes. So I heard him speak to Aubrey Marcus. It was on Aubrey's podcast. And I think it was titled Shocking Science, You Should Only Eat Meat. And I watched it back in August of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to because this was the first time I'd ever heard anybody make a case against vegetables and greens, talking about things like lectins, oxalates, phytoalexins, like tannins, cyanogenic glycosides, like the whole panoply of plant toxins.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed very pragmatic to me. So, and of course, all the people that I started saying, like, I'm going to try this diet of only red meat and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I know my LDL is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. I don't care. If this kills me, I will welcome that at this point. Like, it was that desperate. And
What did your family say? Did you tell your family you were going to do it, or just friends, or?
my mother I told first, because at first I was completely broke, and she did help me get meat and all that. But
right.
But after a month or two, nobody was questioning because they saw how quickly I started improving.
Wow.
Yesterday, I saw two friends I hadn't seen in 2 years, and they were shocked at how healthy I looked.
Really? And
yes.
how did they look? Were they healthy or no?
I mean, they look the same as they always have. So, like,
yeah,
not like fat or sloppy or anything, but I mean, just just still going to Popeyes and getting the chicken sandwich and all that.
Hey, can I ask one thing? We'll get onto what you were eating in a second, but what were you eating when you were taking the supplements, before you went on to the grass-fed, grass-finished meat? What were you eating right leading up to that?
I was mostly just eating red meat, but it was from the supermarket, so it wasn't ideal. And I was eating a lot of, like, carrots and broccoli. I would still eat fruits like berries and apples and things like that, but I didn't go crazy on them. I was still making the mistake of eating nuts.
Yeah, those are shocking. I've never seen anything almost as the oxalate and salicylate content of nuts is out of control. No one should.
They've got lectins too. Nuts are bad news. They're plant DNA. It's very highly protected.
I tell people they're plant semen. So they're just like the earth is like the womb, and then the nuts are just like the sperm. And it's like, that's what would they want to protect in a huge way? Obviously the semen, so they want to deter the bugs and shit from eating it. So, humans put them in their mouth. It's like, of course, it's going to cause incredibly. And also, I saw there's a really, really good author. I think she's a chiropractor called Jill Christo, who's like a mold expert. And she was saying that out of all the foods in the world, nuts have the highest concentration of mold because of the way that they're stored, and when they get damp they hold mold onto them. So it's like these people who have like this acai bowl. I've spent some time in Bali, and you see that shit everywhere, and it's like nuts and seeds and pistachios and berries, and I think they're being healthy, but it's like you're destroying your health so quickly.
That's the irony about so much of the health space today. You will see these well-intentioned people thinking that they're doing the right thing for themselves and their bodies by feeding themselves these kinds of things, and not realizing
Yeah.
I mean, I've loved the expression now for years. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah. And the thing with those is they generally people who eat that sort of stuff, they can lose weight because it's like a fast almost because they're not really absorbing that much. They shit everything out. And a lot of the time for a lot of people, the negative consequences aren't instant or they're not close enough to consuming it. Like it might be a couple of days later that they can't make the connection. And they think
Yes.
like, oh, it's my energy or my chakra, where it's like, no, it was the banana, you idiot. Like, so people just can't. And it's fair. Like, if you look everywhere around, it's like, all ads, oh, get a healthy meal today. And it's some woman in like great shape eating a salad. So, and when you look at like Facebook pages where it's like I went to Texas, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I went to Texas a little while ago
Nice.
and there's so much meat there. It's amazing. But everyone is like so overweight. It's insane. Like rarely will you see someone who's not overweight. But then I went to there was a girl that I was seeing that I met there, and I went to like a meat barbecue place. And you get the meat, but you also get these sides, and the sides are like mac and cheese,
Yep.
chips, and then there's beers and there's all this stuff. So they're eating the meat, but they're also eating like just the same amount of weight, if not more, in sugar and carbs all day.
Yes.
And so people think it's the meat, but it's not. It's
No, it's everything but the meat.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like in some of the carnivore spaces, there are people that seem to be doing fine just going to fast food places and getting the burgers with nothing else, just the meat, and they seem to be doing all right.
Exactly. I've seen the same thing that where they get like they go to like you said Popeyes or I don't know what that is, but like a fast food place and just getting please 10 burger patties please, like Chili's or whatever it is, like they go to get the 10 burger patties, and of course that's full of like processed shit and it's full of like hormones and stuff. But when you compare it to the other choices in life, you
It's
have
it's better.
it is better. That's the thing. And so if someone said to me, would you rather have like an acai bowl or like a McDonald's, 5 McDonald's burger patties? I'd be like, I'll take the fucking burger patties right now. I don't want to eat. I don't want to be shitting my pants and having like, brain fog and feeling awful for 3 days. I'll just have the meat. Thank you very much. And people don't seem
Same.
to get that.
I,
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, yeah, you were just talking about how you just started eating I think the organs and stuff like that, and a month into it, you were doing well.
Yeah, so when I decided to go 100% grass-fed red meat, salt, and water, like I tried the lion diet for the first few weeks. I
Hmm.
stopped claiming that though because after a few weeks I was experiencing cramps because I was still detoxing and all that kind of stuff from all of that. So I did use raw honey for a little bit. I still have it every now and then, but if I do, it's less than 20 grams at a time, and it'll be after my first meal of the day.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Um, I would have caved and eaten something stupid had I not had that in those first few months. But so in the first week, I was eating raw liver. But the second week, I got myself kidneys and started eating kidneys too. After I learned that the alpha wolf goes right for the liver and the kidneys when it gets, I'm just gonna emulate the dogs and see how that works. And I've only eaten organs raw because I didn't want to denature them at all. The only one I've ever tried to cook was heart, but it's always better raw. But heart, I grind the whole thing and I just work with ground heart every day. But
Nice.
yeah, so
Uh,
that was when I decided to just go wild on organs because I saw people getting all sorts of healthy in the carnivore space, but not that many people were going that hard on organ meats.
yeah.
Like Paul Saladino seemed to be the first one I'd ever seen to like really emphasize the importance of eating animals nose to tail, and now as I call it, brain to balls, because that's exactly how I do it. I just ran. You ate my last lamb testicle last week, yesterday. I got to get more of those. Those are.
How is it? How is it? How do you prepare it? The
I
testicle.
just. I. I just blend them in a smoothie.
What
The
else? What else?
smoothie yesterday, the one
Sorry.
yesterday had beef liver, camel kidney, beef heart, lamb testicle, sheep brain, and bison spleen with 3 duck egg yolks and raw milk.
Dude, I wouldn't even know where to get that stuff. That's amazing. But the thing is, most people would like back to the acai bowl thing. What you've made there is probably couldn't get more nutritionally dense than that. Like
Exactly.
you can't do it. It's not even like unless there's like some alien space world where they have some crazy food that we don't know about. But on planet Earth, you can't get it. Like it's like
No,
the eggs and the brain and the organs and what you're saying about organs and Paul Saladino, I think it's really, really important and overlooked because, in the carnivore community sort of thing, there's, Sean Baker and other people and Paul Saladino.
he just eats cooked muscle meat.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, he wasn't sick. That's what I always think. Like
Exactly.
he wasn't sick. He look at his history and he's been like an athlete and really
Yeah,
healthy.
he played rugby for New Zealand All Blacks, didn't he?
Yeah, yes, I think like a huge, one of the big teams, and he went all over the world, and he was like an army person, and like very smart, and like his brain worked, and so did his body. So like
Yes.
but the people who are like people I work with who have tinnitus or people who have like neuropathy or vision problems or whatever, sometimes just the muscle meat is not going to be enough. It's not
No.
nutritionally dense enough, and people don't get that.
No, they don't. I think most people are deficient in vitamin A. I think vitamin A deficiency is rampant these days.
Yeah.
I mean, vitamin D deficiency is probably big. People are probably low on zinc if they're not eating a bunch of red meat.
So
I mean,
for
last
vitamin A, would you suggest people to eat animal fat for vitamin A? Is that your go-to?
my go-to fat lately has been beef suet, the kidney fat. I order it in bulk from U.S. Wellness Meats. I've got about 12 pounds of it I have 2 5-pound bags in the freezer and one that I've been working on. What I'll do is I'll put like a big handful of it in a bowl and pour on hot bone broth, and it just melts, and I'll drink it like that.
That sounds fucking delicious.
It's
That sounds.
really good, man. It's really good.
You're gonna have to send me some, dude. That sounds amazing.
I would definitely, especially if you're ever around these parts.
Yeah.
But I pressure cook bones now until they're soft enough to consume. And I'll
Yeah.
just take like a big bite out of a bone every morning and eat that. You get boron, magnesium, manganese, calcium, strontium, all sorts of elemental goodness.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with the beef suet, because it's high stearic acid, I think it helps chelate all the polyunsaturated fatty acids that built my former figure and made me sick over all those years.
Mhm.
And not to mention all of the drugs that made me sick over the years. Like, I have, I think, like 8 different allergies on record: doxycycline, Cipro, penicillin, clindamycin, cogentin, Halidol, Zyprexa.
Mhm. So
Um,
you're allergic to penicillin.
oh yes.
Have you had that your whole of your life?
I remember being maybe like 11 or 12, and I was at a hockey practice one morning, and I was on a course of penicillin. And while I was on the ice, I felt sick, and I felt my throat closing up. And
Wow.
then I go to the locker room to get changed, and my skin was all broken out in hives and this big rash.
Wow, man.
And all of my allergic reactions involve either skin rashes or total anaphylaxis. Like, I like the psych ones, like Zyprexa, Halidol. Those made my tongue swell to the point I choked on it.
Oh my God. So you have to go to the ER, obviously. Like
Well,
emergency.
no, what they did was they gave me a shot of some Parkinson's drug in my ass called cogentin, and that stopped it. But that was also terrible. That drug caused all sorts of terrible dyskinesia.
Mate, you've had more drugs in you than a pharmacy. Literally.
Speaking of drugs, I have listed the extensive list of pharmaceuticals, all of the ones I can remember.
Yep.
And this is pretty much in chronological order, going back to me being 14 years old.
Sure.
So, Concerta, which is methylphenidate, Ritalin, but extended release. They started me out at 54 milligrams of that and then upped it to like 70, 72. Then it was Strattera, which was a non-stimulant ADHD thing, which was nonsense. Then I got put on Adderall XR 30 milligrams at 15 years old. When they took me off that, they put me on Wellbutrin XR 300 milligrams, and I ended up in the psych ward for the first time. That was when I got put on Seroquel, which is probably the most toxic thing I've ever taken, along with Depakote, which I'd say is worse. Then they hit me with 2 Thorazine injections. I've been on Lamictal, Vistaril, Navion, which is another one like Thorazine. I've been on Abilify. When I was on Abilify, I was getting injections, but that was after the MS because my mind was in such bad shape. And after the second or third Abilify injection was when I tried killing myself last spring.
Wow.
Like, I've been off the hard drugs since 2017, with the exception of that one day, which was a very deliberate suicide attempt.
Yeah. Wow, that's full on.
My girlfriend woke up and resuscitated me, and I woke up when the paramedics walked into the room.
Fucking hell, man.
And then, all right, so I was on Ocrevus, which is one of the MS drugs. It's advertised on TV. It's the most terrible thing I've ever taken.
Yep.
I was on Rituxan. I've been on Trazodone. I've been on prednisone, methylprednisolone, dexamethasone. I've been on Buspar, Roboxin, Neurontin, Gabapentin. I was on Gabapentin for 3 years, and when I developed MS, I'd been on it for 2. I only got off of that stuff like 5 months ago. I was on Sildenafil, Viagra, because I used to be impotent. Thankfully, not anymore. Now it's like I'm 20 years old again, which is a blessing.
Congratulations, man. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I've been on Tramadol, buprenorphine, clonazepam, diazepam. Protonix was this thing they gave me to prevent ulcers while I was taking steroids for long courses of time.
They've always got it's funny how they have drugs for symptoms and not causes, and then they have the drugs for the symptoms that other drugs cause.
Exactly. Like, I remember seeing a commercial for a drug for tardive dyskinesia, which is, shaking induced by pharmaceuticals.
Jesus.
And then I've been on Carbitrol, which was an anti-epileptic, and then I took this one called Sibutramine or Meridia, which this one doctor I used to see in Princeton, like about 9 years ago, the one who diagnosed me with the temporal lobe epilepsy, he had the patent on that drug, and it was one of the only pharmaceuticals I didn't have a bone to pick with, actually. It seemed to be nice, but yeah, it's mind-altering drugs alter your mind and how it works. And that's not a temporary thing. Like, if you alter your mind, you're altering your mind.
So you still have some residual effects from those drugs?
I don't think so anymore. It's not like this time last year, I used to think all of that stuff had me branded for life and had me in a condition from which I was never going to recover.
Yeah.
There's a group on Facebook called Cured to Death Pharmaceutical Injuries, and it's quite macabre in there. There's a lot of really depressed tales, but then I'll usually just chime in and say, if you have any type of nervous system damage, get into eating organ meats so you get the B12, you get the copper, the zinc, selenium, all of that elemental goodness. You get all the B vitamins, vitamin D, E, C, zinc.
See,
Not zinc.
copper is so important.
People
never talk about it. Copper. They never talk about it. How crucial it is. And I remember I saw something when it reacts to iron. I think it's like it helps deal with like iron overload or some other overload, and it's super important for the human body and the immune system. And slowly but surely, the government or whoever, it sounds conspiratorial, but whoever you want to call it, has been taking it out of food and out of medications and replacing it with dog shit. Like just replacing it with apps. And they did the same thing with iodine. They took iodine, which is an essential trace mineral, out of bread, and they took it out of medications, and they took it out of a whole bunch of other things, like baby's milk, I think, like baby's formula, and they replaced it with bromine, which is a neurotoxin and incredibly toxic to the thyroid. And so it's no wonder people are getting sick. But let me ask you, when you post that stuff in that, what was the name of the group?
The Cure to Death Pharmaceutical.
When you post that stuff, what are the reactions you get?
I mean, a lot of them are positive. Some people very often when I talk about how I eat and what I eat, people are just like, "Oh, I could never do that." You know, people are, but the ones that are intrigued will usually message me, and I'll usually have a lot to say to them about it. But I always talk about anytime someone reaches out to me to ask for any type of advice as far as getting well from from a place where it seems like you're beyond reproach.
Mm-hmm.
I always go to the light topic before I start talking about food, because for many people it's so much easier to just get outside and get your feet grounded in the grass and watch the sun come up.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you just said exactly what you just said, where it's easier, because when people come to me for their tinnitus, and the funny thing is, man, a lot of people who come to me who have tinnitus also have a plethora of other issues. Like vision problems is a big one. Dizziness, they have hair loss, they have problems with their sexual function, just a whole, and like their teeth are falling out and like all this crazy shit. And then they say, what is the number one easiest thing that I can do that is like the easiest thing to do, the best bang for my buck? And I say, go and get the glasses that you're wearing now, which is Ray Optics or Blue Blocks. And it's such a simple thing. And it's like, you just pay one time and you just remember, I don't have them on me now because I'm an idiot, but just wearing them in front of the computer. And I also say, when you're at home, don't have the lights on when you don't have to have them on.
Exactly.
Use candles when you can, when it's safe. And whenever you're looking at a screen like this, always have these on. Can I just ask you one question, and then we'll get onto the light thing, because if you want to do that, because that's a huge thing that no one even bothers to talk about.
No, and they should.
Regarding exactly. Regarding the drugs that you took and the symptoms, can I ask, are you on any more medications now, if you don't mind me asking? And also the symptoms that you had previously, like the MS and the vision and the tinnitus and the whatever other symptoms you had, do you still have any of those symptoms, and are they getting better, or how are you now?
These days I'm great. I'm on no prescriptions anymore, thank God.
Well, that's awesome.
I know, and I've been on so many of them.
That's fantastic.
I have experimented with psilocybin since I went ancestral.
Right. How'd it go?
It was all right. I mean, but it wasn't like I remember when I was young. I remember getting like a ton of energy when I was young and all that. Now you just get kind of relaxed and chilled out. But
right, okay.
It would bloat me slightly, and I would always have gas the next morning if I ate those. So.
Yeah, I guess it is a plant, isn't it? Like, did you just eat because the blue cap mushrooms, right? Or are there different strains or something? I don't know. But did you just eat the mushrooms themselves, or do you take like caps or something? Or?
No, I would just eat straight up. Like either the last few I had were penis envy and albino teachers.
Those are great names, but I've got no idea what they are, but that's fantastic. Okay, so you're off the drugs. That's absolutely amazing, man. Really well done. And what about the symptoms? Like do you still have anything or?
So, all right. Well, my balance is good now. I don't fall anymore. I don't lose my train of thought. Like, if this were a year ago, I'd have forgotten who you are by this point and what we're talking about. Like,
It was that bad, was it?
it was like that, yeah.
Wow.
The tinnitus, that I will experience slight bouts of it at times here and there, but that's only if I'm like in a hospital or some other type of blue lit building with a high EMF output.
Yeah.
When I get away from that is when it just seems to vanish again. But that was like the longest lingering little bit of anything I was experiencing.
Gotcha.
But pretty much from the time the MS happened to me until I went to the ancestral diet, it used to sound like I had just gotten out of a really loud concert.
Wow. So it was just like constant. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, just
that constant ringing, and
yeah,
it can drive you to madness.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I used to have it. I used to have it real bad. 10 out of 10. Just like think about killing yourself. It's torture. It
really is. Just anything that just you can't shake.
Yeah.
Can drive you.
Yeah. And isn't it? It's interesting what you said about the hospitals, like the high EMF and the lights, because it's so. I remember I was in when I was really sick. I got food poisoning from a fucking salad. Go figure. In Thailand, like a year and a half ago, and I was in the intensive care unit for like 15 days or something, and they kept wanting to leave the light on in the room. And like, you're making me so much sicker. Just turn the light off. And because they wanted to see me in case I would like die. And I was like, first of all, I'm in so much pain. Just let me die if I'm dying. And second of all, they had me hooked up to like a heart monitor and one of those finger things and oxygen. Like every one of my fingers basically had been designated to something. And then I had all these wires going into me. So they were going to hear it or see it. But they just wouldn't turn off the light. And so like I couldn't sleep, and it was
those hospital lights are awful.
I think they are some of the most, whatever ones they have, because they're just money savers. It's all it is. A hospital is just a business. It's not a place to get better. It's a fucking business. And so it's sicker and sicker.
In the U.S., it's the number 3 cause of preventable mortality these days. And that's not even malpractice or like improper drugging. That's just people taking their stuff as prescribed and following the doctor's orders right to their grave.
I didn't know that. Wow, gee. I thought it was like doctor error or malpractice, but is it just people taking the drugs and just, going
along with the protocols? But the thing with hospitals, the EMF is terrible in hospitals.
Oh, isn't it? Because you're surrounded by all these machines just all the time. And the Wi-Fi.
Much of it in hospitals. Then it's completely lit with fluorescent lights, which are the worst.
Yeah.
Then you don't get fresh air. You don't get sunlight. You don't get to be grounded.
Yeah.
And you're fed junk food in hospitals.
You're fed food that will put you in the hospital in the first place. Like I remember when because I went from my hospital in Thailand, which was actually, they were pretty good there. But then I went to Melbourne back in Australia because I got airlifted there. And I was they like sent in the nutritionist and all this shit. And then the nutritionist said to me, "Oh, make sure you get your protein." And she pushed my tray of food to me. And what was on it was like a tea cake and like a Big M, which in Australia is like a pasteurized dairy sugar soft drink piece of shit. Like it's like full of sugar. And then it was like Doritos, and the Doritos was the dessert. That was the dessert, to like offset all the healthy stuff. And then there was the healthy thing was a fruit salad. And it was like, rock melons and like a cherry and stuff. And I was like, where is the meat? Where is the stuff that's going to rebuild my tissue and fix? I've lost a lot of weight. I need fat. I need protein. I need a steak. And my mum used to sneak me in liver to the hospital. And then I recovered so quickly that the doctors were blown away. They couldn't believe it. I was just pouring that shit down the sink and saying, yep, that was yummy. More, please. Jesus Christ. Let's get on to the light. I suppose we're there now, but can you talk a bit about, you were talking about how some of your symptoms went away or got better when you started using those glasses and stuff like that?
Yes, so there were the brain zaps. That went back to me being 15 years old. I remember the first time I ever experienced one of those. I was snowboarding. I had just gotten off of a chairlift, and I was like buckling my binding back in, and I just felt like this. It feels like the pins and needles almost if your limb falls asleep or something like that, but like just super intense for a few seconds right in the back of my head. And it went away after a few moments, so I just kind of shrugged it off. But this would happen to me periodically over the years until the fall of 2019, when after that root canal, that happened, and instead of it passing, it just got worse and worse and worse, and then it felt like something popped or something like that. And after that happened was when I lost all use of the right side of my body. Like the whole right side of my body was paralyzed. Like,
wow.
Lifting my phone up right now, I could not have done that with my dominant hand back then.
Jesus Christ.
So the light thing, when I decided to go on this ancestral diet kick, before I got banned from the Healing Multiple Sclerosis Naturally Facebook group.
How did you get banned? What did you do?
Because I healed multiple sclerosis naturally, and I naturally had a lot of things to say about it. I would tell these people that supplements are killing you because they all have seed oils or some otherwise nasty chemical filler. I would tell them that their anti-inflammatory holy grail of turmeric is the highest oxalate food there is, and stop.
It's dog shit, that stuff.
It is. And then the final straw was when I shared Paul Saladino's controversial thoughts video where he just rips coffee apart for about a half hour straight.
Oh, yeah. The funny thing was that was actually going to be actually, sorry, we'll keep talking about Lyme. Actually, no, quickly, I'll just ask you now, what do you think about coffee? Yes. No.
Okay, so as a former drug addict, when you get cleaned up off hard drugs, the big vice most junkies take up is caffeine. Yeah. Because it's everywhere, it's readily available, it picks you up, and in all of those AA, NA meetings, there's always a big pot of coffee, and people just drink coffee like mad. So I drank coffee religiously from age 21 to 31. I was still drinking it at 32, but it's loaded with acrylamide and mycotoxins, and decaf coffee is even worse as far as the mycotoxins are concerned. Yeah. And me being someone who no doubt had some degree of mold toxicity because of all the basement and crawl space work. It's better to avoid those kinds of things. So here's my anecdote from the one time I tried having it again after I quit. So I quit coffee on the second day of the carnivore thing because I had eaten raw liver. I ate the liver again the next morning, and I tried drinking coffee afterwards. I threw the coffee right up and didn't touch it again for several months. I tried having bacon again, like from Costco, some shitty Costco bacon. Yeah. No doubt soy-fed pork and all of that, or whatever terrible things they were eating. But I ate this bacon and got distended. I got bloated. I got really constipated. So the next day, I was at my girlfriend's, and there's really nice organic coffee there. So I figured, all right, I'll try having some coffee to pass this. It didn't help my constipation. The next day, my left knee gave out when I was going up the stairs.
Wow. So it just gave you, weaken the hell out of that joint or whatever it did.
Yeah. I mean, I was never diagnosed with any form of arthritis. I'm sure I had one, at least some type of it, but because my left ankle used to be really bad, my left knee was the bad one. My right shoulder used to be really bad. My right hip was really bad. It's not as bad as it used to be because of all the connective tissues and bone marrow and things like that I eat, and the bone broth. The bone broth is helpful, but my right hip would just, like, I had several bad joints and none of them bother me anymore. But that one day I tried having the coffee, the next day my knee gave out going up the stairs, and I was just like, all right, never again.
Yeah, that's it. Would you, about light, I think we did already.
Yeah, we touched on it, but we got sidetracked.
Yeah, I keep having so many questions for you and so many stories and stuff. But we did actually speak about this already. But what to people? Let's say you're talking to someone who it is symptom dependent. But would you suggest to that person you should spend your money on grass-fed, grass-finished meat first and organs, or you should get a pair of blue blocking glasses? And I know that's kind of a
that's a good question, but I would honestly think the glasses should come first.
Yeah.
Glasses and getting some good lamps at the pet store. Like when it's a cloudy day or rainy or overcast, I have an infrared lamp. And I have a full spectrum solar lamp as well. I got them both at the pet store, and those are great. Like, you can lay under those naked for a little bit, and you will feel charged up afterwards.
Yeah, that's what that's one of the biggest in terms of like outdoor light. And by the way, I would say the same thing. If someone said to me, "What should I spend my money on? High quality food or these glasses?" I would say spend the money on the glasses first, but also eat meat, even if it's not the best quality, and then you can save up from the money you spent. I always think in terms of light, people underestimate the sunlight in terms of how it can heal you. And it's one of the biggest lies ever perpetuated on mankind that sunlight, will kill you.
It's somehow harmful for you.
Yeah, I know. So you should put sunscreen on. If you look at the rate of skin cancer and sunscreen usage, it just goes up like this, both of them together. So it's like, oh, gee, it shouldn't be going up and down. Shouldn't the rate of skin cancer be going down with the increase of sunscreen? But it's going up together. Yeah. So it's a total crock of shit.
Yeah, I know. And I've found that since I made the dietary switch, I used to sunburn really bad, which genetically that shouldn't make sense because my father was Croatian, my mother is Syrian and Italian, like Southern Italians.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
So, why the hell would I be sunburned? So, once I got my diet straight and started going really hard on the fat and fatty fish roe and raw oysters are probably my favorites as far as seafood goes. But I handle sunlight, so I don't, and it's big in the MS world too, that especially when people take those terrible drugs, that they become very sensitive to heat and cold alike, and even light and sound. But I can lay out in the sun for hours straight, and it'll have no effect on me for the worse. I'll feel better, my skin will look more colorful afterwards, and it's just another thing. It's allergy season here right now. Like, the trees are dumping pollen like crazy. And this is the first year in my life I've never had hay fever.
Wow.
I used to get allergies really bad. When I had the MS at first, sudden allergies around my girlfriend never happened to me before. I think with the light, like if you a good amount of EPA, DHA, those omega-3s, and get your omega-3 to 6 ratio straightened out by eating grass-fed, grass-finished ruminants and quality seafood, I think that makes a ton of difference for people. Because I used to be one of those, especially with the MS, where I couldn't take light or sound at all. There's a picture on social media somewhere of me and my girlfriend at the beach last summer, and this was when I was still going through hell, but like you see like a forced smirk on my face that wasn't really genuine. These days in photos, I'm always just like, smiling because I actually feel good. So it's easy to smile for these things, but back then it was just a pain, and I could only be in the sun for like 20 minutes at a time before I had to call it a day.
Wow.
Now I can be outside all day long, and I feel great the whole time.
Yeah,
I barely sweat anymore.
I was just saying, I'm exactly the same. And I used to have, I used to be able to, sorry, I used to get burnt all the time and I'd get freckles and I'd, get scorched. One thing that I've sort of, because I've tried to pinpoint it down as to what it could be, and there's a compound in plants called salicylate, which I think that you know.
Yes.
And that actually causes, what it does is it turns the part of your skin, it's actually the photoreceptors in your skin, which are designed to take in the sun, it turns them against you. And so it actually causes rashes and burns to break out quicker when you're exposed to the sun. So it's one of the ways that plants just say, as they're, going down dying, they're going down shooting and they hurt you. And that's one of the things they do. So when I have, especially the women in my group tend to eat, women tend to eat more vegetables from what I've seen. And so I say, if you need to get out into the sun, because light's important to start with, so cut out the plants with salicylate in it and see what happens. And it works. They're still eating plants, but as soon as they eat more fat and meat, which helps too, I'm sure, and they cut out salicylate-rich plants, which is like nuts is a big one, and I think there's some cruciferous ones also have that in it too.
I think avocado is salicylate. I forget. I remember there's a list of high salicylate foods in the carnivore code, but it's been a minute since I've read it.
There's lists in that book, and I think Sean Baker has one, and there's probably some on the internet as well.
I want to read his book. I haven't read it yet. The next one I'm ordering is the Agenus von der Planet's book, We Want to Live. I'm really curious about what he had to say.
That's a great book. That's a great book, man. He's got a pretty crazy story about, trying to kill himself, and with the coyotes that got him the rabbit, and he ate it thinking he was self-eating this raw meat. Yeah, Agenus is fascinating. I wish he was still around. I would have loved to have met him. He used to live where I used to live in Chiang Mai, Thailand, because the meat and the food is very high quality there. So I used to go to like the meat markets there, and you could get like really high quality organs with just like laid out, like any organ you wanted. And you could go to a butcher and they had like any like different bags of animal fat, and you could choose which animal's fat you wanted. And so you could have fat or beef. And I'm talking like $3 for like 3 footballs worth of stuff. And also, I tried raw dairy, but it didn't really agree with me. I saw you were drinking some there. But there's also, like, this is all within like 5-minute motorbike ride of the center of Chiang Mai, where most people stay. There's a raw milk plant where they get the raw milk in freezers, and you can get like a sack that's like this big for like $5. And it's like, it tastes amazing, but I ended up just nearly shitting myself for like 5 hours. But I drank too much, I think, so that's fair enough.
I don't go crazy on it. I'll have it here and there. But since I went completely raw with all the food 3 months ago, it was on Valentine's Day. I took my first bite of a steak raw. It was a 1.5 pound ribeye bone-in. I live streamed it on Facebook. And I took a bite of it, and the first thing I said was, all the wasted steaks I've cooked.
Really? So you prefer it like that?
Yeah. And I was shocked at how much better the gristle tastes raw, and just
Yeah.
How much better you digest. While I did start feeling better quickly with having digestion,
Oh, there we go. That's fine. Yeah. So you were eating because people don't realize with when you cook meat, you actually kill some of the nutrients. People
yes,
don't
you
realize.
denature it.
Yeah, and the
And
same with
people,
eggs. Eggs is a big one actually. People always think, oh, if you have raw eggs, you're gonna get
no,
what is it? I forget what it's called.
salmonella.
Salmonella, yeah, which is total horseshit. And people don't realize. I think you're
We
more likely to get salmonella
have
from plants.
salmonella E. coli already.
Sorry?
We
So
already have salmonella and E. coli. It's just you
yeah,
gotta have the other bacteria healthy enough to balance it out,
is
to
that
keep
right?
each other in check. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I've heard about it, that we all already have salmonella and E. coli.
I did know
It's
that. Yeah, yeah, I did know that. And I also have been oh, it's a different topic, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting how much of what we get taught, well, sorry, what doctors get taught who then teach us is total shit. It's
I
like
know.
it's like all of it is unless you're like acutely dying, I don't see much of a point in going to a GP, like a general practitioner. They
Yes,
just make you worse. They're gonna make you
exactly.
sick. Yeah.
Like
Uh,
I believe there to be true value in emergency medicine,
definitely.
but treating conditions, like treating chronic conditions with medications, is madness,
No, it's insane.
because
It's
it's
insane.
a band-aid at best, and it's a malignant way to slowly kill you at worst and
Yeah,
make you suffer like hell in doing so.
and it might, most of the time, when someone gets an antidepressant, that will sometimes make you feel better, but then you're poisoning yourself, so your brain is starting to die and your nervous system is starting to die.
Yes.
Everything is falling apart. And then of course that's happening. And then of course your body and your liver is getting used to the drug. So 6 months later, you got to up the dose. And then you start to die faster. And then that initial problem that was still there is not only still there, but it's getting worse because now you've made your brain worse.
And you haven't done anything to correct or
No,
mitigate the underlying causes.
exactly. And you don't know what the cause is because no, the doctor doesn't know either. They always call it idiopathic, which means it came from nowhere. There's no, that's literally, that's a true term in medical science.
I
Is
know, I've heard it.
you've heard it, yeah. All right, let's finish off with, is there anything else you want to say about blue light? Because I think we've covered your story is insane. Like we've
Yes.
spoken before this, but that's fucked, man. The way as you say in Australia. But is there anything else you want to say about blue light or anything?
I mean, all right, so blue light, I mean, it's just get the glasses, avoid electronics as much as humanly possible.
Mm.
Get outside as much as you can, and when you get outside, get dirty, get your hands and feet in the dirt.
Hmm.
Like, be barefoot, get grounded, and especially in the morning, because the highest concentration of infrared, that healing frequency, is at first light.
Yeah, sunrise.
And
Yeah.
and I've found that when I'm at the beach watching the sun come up, because here on the East Coast, you watch the sun come up right over the water.
Hmm.
The taller your shadow is in the morning, the better that feels every
Right.
time.
Okay, so like, what does that mean? Because it's more level with you or something, or it's closer to the earth, or
I don't know. That was just something I observed just
oh,
in
okay.
my experiments with this. Like,
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So it's like okay, gotcha. Like a
yeah,
personal experience.
the
No.
closer you are to daybreak with your morning sun gazing, the more effective I believe it to be. But
Okay.
also, watching the sunrise is a great way to get your circadian rhythm in check.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because, I mean, now that my circadian rhythm is finally right for the first time in my life, because, I mean, when I was young, like 18 to 22, I was working at a cheesesteak shop by the beach. And we would serve all of the drunk people coming out. There were like 5 big bars in this town that would all converge around us from like midnight to 3 in the morning, and we'd have a line down the block. And so for years, I would wake up at around 3 in the afternoon, go to work at 4 p.m., and then work till 4 in the morning.
God.
I would go to sleep around dawn and then just go back and do it again the next day.
Dude, that sounds like torture. Your body
Yeah, I mean, that was also when the self-medicating became heavier. I was smoking a lot of weed to deal with that job because, I mean, how else do you subject yourself to that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Imagine a bunch of drunk Jersey Shore MTV type Guidos out the door. all these juice heads just like raising all sorts of hell, waiting on their food.
Yeah, just oh my God. All right, man. Well, maybe we'll leave it there. And I think we've covered. I had all these questions here, but you've actually. Oh, do you still have your root canal, or is it out?
It's not finished. My girlfriend was actually telling me to go get it finished, but after my last experience at the dentist, I'm nervous about that one because the dentist, it's all blue light, and then they shine that disgusting light in your mouth. And
so, do you know what they've done? So it's a half finished root canal, is it? I can't really see.
It's like all the way back. It's
okay. So do they still have to? Is there still a tooth there, or is it just?
There's still a tooth, but it needs a crown on it.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't get that root canal finished because I would just get is a tooth dead? Is that what's wrong with it, or is it just like cracked or?
I think now it's dead. I think they got the nerve out of there.
I would get it pulled out because that shit can have, like, I get a lot of people who get root canals and it fucks their health. I would just get it pulled out and get like a fake tooth put in. But that's my opinion, do whatever.
This was before I got excommunicated from the MS world. I noticed there were several other people with anecdotes of developing MS right after a root canal.
Yeah, no, because what a root canal is essentially you're leaving dead tissue inside the body. And so your tooth is like a living organism, as you would know. So it's got pumps in it, it needs blood and so forth. So when you cut off the nerves and you cut off the supply of nutrients and whatever else you're doing to it, it dies. And so what they do is they just cover it and let that dead tooth sit under there, festering in that disgusting area with all the bacteria that's already there. And there's a bacteria helps break it down or whatever. There's a documentary on it called Root Cause. It pumps out all this toxic shit straight into your body. And you know where it goes? It goes right to the brain straight away. It's the first place it goes. It goes to your brain, goes to your eyes, goes to your ears. I have so many not patients, clients. I'm not a doctor. God, I don't want to be mistaken for one of those people. But I have so many clients who get a root canal and then like a week later or 2 months later, they've got tinnitus. And it's on the same side of their body that they got the root canal on.
Yeah, my ear thing, it was always the right ear that really bothered me, and that root canal was on the right side.
Yeah, full on. All right, man. Well, had a lovely talk with you today. This is actually I've heard a lot of stories, and including my own, of people who've been through hell, but you have literally sucked the dick of Lucifer in your life. So
yes.
It was literally full on. So jokes aside, man, thanks for doing this talk today. Really, I think a lot of people are going to benefit from it. Your story is amazing, and your diet is also incredible. And I hope people watching this now won't get deterred because it's something they're not used to, eating organs and maybe trying something raw and that sort of thing. Because, they're used to plants being healthy, but it's a fucking lie.
It is.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody watching this to take a walk on the wild side.
Yeah.
It took me 2 months to get my palate to adapt to the point of eating just raw organ meat straight up, where I could just chew them, swallow them. But for the first few months, to anyone who's curious about this, I would cut them up really, really small and just take spoonfuls with water. The raw milk is a lot easier than water, or bone broth is another great way to swallow them. If you need to, if you're neurologically damaged, I think there's nothing better than the organs and the bone broth and marrow and stuff like that.
I agree. Okay, last question. Number one food you recommend? What is it? Number one food you'd suggest for anyone who's sick?
Ooh. That's a hard one, but I mean, bone marrow is probably my favorite, but
You can do two. You can choose two if you want to make it easier.
Yeah, bone marrow, I love liver and kidney. Like liver, kidney, heart, I pretty much always eat those together. Brains I've been going crazy on for the last 3 months. I love brains are the best tasting one too of all of them. Like brains, thymus is really good. I've only eaten bison thymus, but it was probably the easiest organ I've ever eaten. It's quite tasty. Adrenal glands are pretty amazing too. I've only had bison adrenals, but I want to try getting a squirrel today so I can eat all of its organs.
Yeah, man. If you manage to snag a squirrel with that crossbow, let me know.
Yeah, I'll send you the photos if I do manage that.
That'd be amazing. All right, man. Well, it was lovely talking today, man. And I think people are going to love this. And we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Absolutely, Liam. It's been a pleasure.
George, talk to you later.
Take